What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Unlimited podcast. Tonight, we got a special treat for you. Many guests in the house talking about the NuCanoe Florida road trip, doing a little Q&A for you folks, talking about what these fine gentlemen did while they were on the road. ICAST Week 2023. Somebody caught a giant fish. Somebody had to get towed back to shore, or all three of you had to get towed back to shore, right?
Yeah.
That's the part I'm interested about. The fish, yeah, I'm interested, but the rolling through the storm in a kayak on the ocean, all right.
I mean,
you guys,
buddy, that wasn't one day. I think that was every day.
Yeah, it happened a number of times to us.
All right, even better. You guys have bigger cojones than me, so touche. But I guess we'll start off with day one. I'll let you guys kind of kick off where you started and what the goal was for the day.
Yeah. But I want to give a little bit backstory. So so many people kind of followed along with our journey, but just to give a little context here, we decided again not to go to ICAST, but to release content from the water, going from the east coast of Florida, starting Amelia Island, working your way over to the Gainesville area, and then ultimately ending up in the Tampa, St. Pete area. So the idea was to just release content, be able to showcase the products from outside the booth, and be able to bring people on that journey with us. So with that, we could just kind of do a day-by-day breakdown. So I know for day one, that was East Coast, Amelia Island. That was Stewart's main area. So I flew in, and I was really excited to meet up with these guys. Will came rolling up pretty late.
Yeah, someone had to pick up all the kayaks.
Yeah.
And then drive with them all the way there.
Yeah, because you picked them up and drove all the way down.
If it's anything ICAST related, it seems like either Will or I is the one shucking all the kayaks to wherever it is we are, no matter what.
Yeah, it was it's throw them in the back of the truck. Let's go. We'll drive them all down. Don't worry about it.
Pretty much.
I don't think this is our second. Well, we've done a lot of content trips. This is kind of the second one in this vein of this year. I don't think they can start with a good amount of sleep or at a reasonable hour. I feel like they're always late night rigging, and then we're 7 a.m. Let's hit the water.
I mean, this is a different one where at least on this trip, I was able to pick up the kayaks. There's a new dealer, actually, I'll give a shout out to him and do this just to help out. There's a new dealer in North Georgia, the Dalton area, which hasn't had a NuCanoe dealer in forever. It's Dalton Power Sports. They actually let us bring the kayaks in. I drove over, picked them up. And then actually for once, I had a couple days to rig it. So had them all pre-wired. We set them up every different way. And then it was just the drive to Amelia, which was pretty easy. I mean, getting in late always. I mean, you're trying to get as many days as you can. So you work a full work day and then truck it down there. So it's the way it went. But no, they were really good. They held everything for us. And then as always, we had to do a couple of last minute overnight ships from the west coast of the United States and Washington to Florida.
Yeah, it's definitely. We wanted to have the unlimiteds, have them rigged out a couple different ways. So we got through the late night rigging. I got to meet Stewart's mother, a wonderful woman. It was great to hang out. Amazing cook. Those enchiladas, I still dream about them. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, she definitely kept us well fed and the fridge stocked. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that kind of brings us to day one, where Stewart had a surprise for us because he was out scoping the day before with a buddy. Do you wanna give the plug here and kind of showcase what that looked like?
Gladly. So I was lucky enough to have already basically taken that week off, assuming that we would be at ICAST like always. And so I got to get down there Saturday. A good friend of mine, Jeremiah Miller, he runs Amelia Fishing Adventures. He's an awesome guy, incredible guide who I've been very lucky to fish with over the many years now. And he said, man, this sounds like a cool idea. How can I help? So I jumped in the boat with him Sunday morning, and we basically spent a few hours running around in his center console locating fish. It was really, really neat to have somebody who was just on, last minute, yo, I'm in, let's do this. this is cool. Jeremiah he has a Flint as his personal kayak. So he was like, yeah, I'm in. Just tell me where to be and when to be there, and let's rock and roll. So really cool of him to jump in and help out. So we were able to scout a little bit the day before, and then day one was very much touch and go because of the weather. So we were kind of having to dance that dance. If you're a kayak fisherman, you know how this works. You got to keep one eye on the radar, and if you're saltwater, one eye on the tide, and kind of figure out what's going on. But he was nice enough to donate his day, which of course he would normally be with paid clients, to basically mothership / shuttle us to where we had found the fish the day before, and really help us maximize our time on the water so that we could, focus on the content and of course the fish. But yeah, huge shout out to Jeremiah for sure.
Yeah. Can we so Jeremiah had us, right? We're like all smiles and like we're getting towed out there, which was awesome, right? So we're sitting in the back, we're just cruising, getting towed. I think we have a photo of that one, Schiller. But then we hit the jetty line, and it's like a 2-mile jetty, like going out there, and like, where did the game plan come from? We're like, let's go over the jetty. Like that's what we're gonna do. We're just gonna up these things.
Probably my very poor decision. It sounds really cool.
There was no other way to do it, though.
Yeah, it was a long trek. It would take us a while to get around that
jetty. The trip and dancing around the weather and everything. We kind of had to make a game time decision, call an audible. We were fortunate in that where we were, kind of positioned geographically, it was kind of a straight shot if you didn't count the jetty. So we just, Brian and I basically just said, time to put our big boy pants on and handle business. I think we both got cut up pretty good. Put those boats through hell in short order.
Yeah.
You don't have barnacles. You don't have barnacles on the West Coast up north, do you?
We have barnacles, but we don't and we have oyster beds, but it's not like that. Like that was next level. Like if I touched anything, it was a razor blade. I remember we're like huffing some gear over, and I'm like I like to say like a pretty agile guy, and I was looking at this like little precipice. It was like 5 feet down, and I was like, if I fall, like that's a lot of cuts. Like that's not gonna feel good. And I was like kind of like on the edge there, and then you're able to get the gear over, and there's like waves crashing the whole time, right? Like, I mean, they're not the biggest waves, but they're coming in. Like you're kind of like dealing with all these like different elements and pulling them up over the jetty. And when we went up to it, we pulled across the flats, right? So we're like, we put the rope over, we're in like a little bit of water, pulled the boats all the way to the jetty. And then we made the call to not go on the beach because we're like, that's going to take too long. Let's go over the jetty. And it was about halfway over the jetty. I was like, we should have taken the beach. Like, I was like,
I mean, hey, it gave the perfect timing because, like, I'm talking about mothershipping though, like not only getting to tow the distance, but like when you're on a timetable and you're generating content, obviously, like the mothership thing is kind of the hidden behind the scenes that most people don't see. On this trip, we were pretty forward and forthright where we told everyone, hey, look, this is what we're doing. But having the mothership like allowed us to go net bait. So like there's multiple days where we didn't have a mothership and we were net and bait ourselves. But having that boat while y'all were getting across the jetties, I mean, we booked it 2 miles down, 2 miles back, and threw a cast net, got a lot of white bait, got ready to catch tarpon. So like that definitely, I mean, it worked out for both sides.
Yeah, and I do want to stress, like all of this could have been done without the boat. The time would have been different. That was the thing. Like we were on such a tight timetable, and the weather was closing in. So like it makes things a lot more efficient and running. But we could have probably ran down or gone over the beach and then ran down because we went a couple miles down because we were chasing down looking for tarpon. So that kind of brings us like we got over the jetty.
So also too, the one thing I'll throw in real quick to your point, talking about the time thing, chasing the tarpon. So depending on where you are in Florida or anywhere for that matter, how the tarpon act and how you target those fish is different. So, we targeted tarpon a certain way there because of how they're relating to bait, and how we targeted them on the Gulf side, Tampa, St. Pete area was totally different. So being able to, having that luxury of chasing bait, pogies, whatever you want to call them, chasing those giant schools down with the boat, kind of having a little heads up as to where we're going with the kayaks, yeah, we could have totally done it without it. But, for the sake of the content and generating, what we promised to do this whole week, it was absolutely invaluable to have that luxury 100%.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It definitely is like super helpful. And we could not have probably, I don't know, I don't think we could have pulled off what we did in that day with that time frame with any other way. Because like we got picked back up by the boat, right? So we got over the jetty, we started heading down, and we were looking for pogies, bait, busting, and we were heading down. And it was probably, what would you guys say, like 3 miles? When we found some tarpon up on the surface.
Probably more than that.
Probably more than that. Yeah. So
there was a lot of beach between that jetty and where we hooked up. So,
and like wild horses. It's a wild place down there. There's just horses like running down the beach.
Yep.
Yeah, that is not something up here on the West Coast I see very often. Like I'm like wild horses is something like I read about in like history books and stuff. So but we went down the beach, we got like 4 miles, and then we saw the tarpon. And what I think people don't realize about this day one is we fished 30 minutes. Like we were not lines in the water for that long. Like
the stars aligned to get a tarpon on day one.
Yeah, like
absolutely.
It was all travel time. Like getting there.
We had baits in the water for definitely less than 30 minutes before the hookup. And then it was literally hook up and all hell broke loose, not just with the tarpon, but Mother Nature.
So everyone knows, like, tarpon fishing, the main thing of tarpon fishing is you're pulling schools. Like tarpon they school up what's called a pod, and then that pod migrates up and down. So like the big most of the like smaller resident tarpon all live down in the warm waters. They don't make the migration. So the tarpon that are moving up that you can get in Amelia Island up through Charleston, I think they even go as far north as Virginia Beach. And on the Gulf side, they go all the way around to Texas. Those are the big like migrating breeding fish. We didn't see any pods. We saw like a single tarpon here, a single tarpon there. And second cast, you're hooked up on one, which is just like, I mean, sometimes tarpon, for them to be so big, they're like the pickiest fish in the world to eat. That's why they're the number one game fish in the world, I think, for inshore. So like just the stars aligned. Absolutely. Because I didn't see a pod of 200, 400, 600 tarpon rolling through.
Oh no, I think the biggest pod we saw up there was, even in my day of scouting, was 6 or 8.
Yep.
Yeah, like I saw like 1 or 2 like break, and I had 3 casts, and they weren't even near. I was just hucking. I was like, man, there's a bait school there. They're not breaking on the other side. I'll let them kind of go around there, and that was pretty much all I did. And then Stuart's hooked up. I'm trying to reel up, and then it's just content. Like I'm just praying he doesn't lose the tarpon, and I'm trying to like bust over there.
Good fish.
Yeah, so I think that kind of brings us to Stuart. Like, man, how was the fight from a NuCanoe, man? Like, you're on Unlimited, you're hooked into it, like the Silver King. How was that?
So, for reference, and Will can attest to this, Will has heard me lament, bitch, complain, whatever you want to call it, for several years now about my luck with tarpon. He's even gone out of his way to try to coordinate with me and help get a tarpon in the kayak. Since I started actively targeting these fish, I've hooked. Actually, this tarpon that you guys are seeing now was number 25 from the kayak. So I actively hooked, gotten at least one jump out of 25 fish up to this point. And it's insane. Like, you hear people talk about being obsessed with a fish, the white whale, whatever you want to call it. It's the Silver King for a reason, because it once you experience it, once you're able to target that fish specifically, it's consuming. I literally spent every waking hour, free moment, free dollar. If I was in Florida during that migration period, that's all I did. Before and after ICAST every year, I would take a half day, hit it on the way down, go to ICAST, hit it on the way back, wherever we were filming, whatever we were doing. It's been a mission for sure. And hooking one again, it's always incredible. It's great. but there's something different about it from a kayak, and Will can attest to plenty of fish that he's hooked, landed, chased, all that good stuff. I know from center consoles and everything. But the kayak is a battlefield, and it's a very, very small, intimate battle that you're fighting with a very not so small fish. And it is chaos. It's crazy. It's a ton of work, but no matter what kayak it is, I would say you would want a very, very stable platform that you were very familiar with, because it will put your gear, your kayak, your own, physical ability to the test for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I remember, so I came over with the camera. So Will was shooting from the boat, getting all the photos you see there. I was trying to whip around and get some like video content, stuff like that. And like Stewart's putting in work, dude. Like his face, like you can see some of the photos, like he's really putting in like the back bend on that thing. Like we just, again, I'm a West Coast fisherman out here, so I'm thinking like halibut. Like there's just not a lot of fish that put that much work into you, that are like chrome and powerful. And it was just pretty cool to see, man. Like to see that much power be put into it. I remember when you guys are pitching this, and I was like going through it, I'm like, basically we're just becoming human bobbers. So we're like sitting on a kayak, you're hooking in, and then you're using like the pull of the kayak against the fish to be able to bring this thing in. That's pretty nuts.
I mean, you were on my rod and reel setup, that Daiwa, that Protus WN with, I mean, that's a 5,000 reel loaded with 50-pound braid to 40-pound leader with the drag literally on max. Like, I mean, you're running 30 pounds of drag. So you got to think, like, if you're fighting a tarpon for an hour, like on a center console, you're essentially just your drag, and the tarpon's not really going to, I mean, it pulls the boat some, but not a ton. On a kayak, when you're locked down like that, essentially you are just a big bobber. Like 30 pounds of drag running with a big rod like that on a beef setup. I mean, that tarpon's just, you're going where he wants to go. I mean, I know in Tampa, in Tampa, there's some, pushing 200-pound tarpon where I've gone 7 miles in a 21-foot center console. I mean, granted, the tide's pushing you out and all those other things, but I mean, 7 miles. So, I mean, if you were to hook up on a absolute, like the largest of large tarpon, I could easily see that being like, who's going to give up first? Because I know I'm not going to be in there for, and that's also kind of at that point.
To your point exactly, Will, I hooked a fish probably 3, maybe 4 years ago now, off the coast of Vero Beach, Florida, in the Flint. So just for reference, unlimited versus Flint. I had surf launched and I hooked one there. And that fish towed me, per my GPS track, that fish towed me miles up the beach. Thank goodness it decided to stay on the beach, probably because it didn't even know I was there. But I mean, we're talking probably the better part of an hour and a half, maybe even closing in on 2 hours, and miles up the beach. So yeah, and that, I mean, granted, the one that I hooked in Vero was noticeably bigger. It was probably up in that 125 to 150 pound class. But they are incredible animals, and especially from a kayak. If you've been kayak fishing for any length of time, you understand it's a different, I will go so far as to say, intimate connection with not only the fish, but nature, all of those things, compounding on one another by the second. And it's cool with a bass that's like 5 pounds. You throw an animal that's, 100 pounds into this equation, who is not happy at all and has the acrobatic ability of a tarpon. It is one of the coolest things I think you can ever experience in a kayak, hands down.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was cool just being a part of that. Like, it was just kind of electric. The whole thing, like, it's a different vibe. Like, you're fishing kind of like at an elevated state at that point. Yeah, that's nuts. So going forward a little bit, so we saw that picture of Will. Will was doing a revival, like a release, right? And that's when the rain started. Like, I remember taking video and I'm like this, and then the rain starts kind of hitting the camera, and I'm like, man, this is a good amount of rain, And then it's like trying to get back in the boat, and then like, Will, what was that from your perspective? Like, so you're trying to like do like 8 things at once.
I mean, it was hectic enough where I left a $6,000 camera set up just sitting on the deck of the boat with it getting rained on.
Yeah, I remember that because I jumped on the boat.
Tsunami.
And
trying to pull y'all in. Jeremiah, I know he was at this point like, all right, man, I'm used to being in a boat. Let's go. Like, he was not putting it in neutral. He's like, you're getting these guys in. Like, I don't know if y'all remember getting in the boat, but we were still going forward.
Yeah, I remember like whipping up, and I'm like trying to get over, and then we're putting the camera away, and I'm like trying to hook things up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like that's kind of the point. Like the rain's coming, we're going. Jeremiah, like I think for me, the thing was like seeing Jeremiah's eyes. Like again, I'm not from that area. Like we have like our own stuff going on, but like when Jeremiah's eyes, like he has his hood around, like you can see his eyes, right? And Will's like trying to block the rain from like hitting him in the eyes as we're going. And we have like we're trying to tie off boats, kayaks are going behind us. We're trying to make it to the jetty, and he's just like laser focused. Like he's like, we're getting it.
Honestly, that was as aware as Jeremiah is. I mean, Will, you've been in Florida enough to understand this, and I know several people probably watching have been. Florida is everything changes by the minute, especially when it comes to the weather. But yeah, so this ride was actually, once we had gotten to the jetties, we got wet. I mean, don't get me wrong, we got wet. But we get to the jetties and we can kind of tell that, it's building, right? Like it's the big cell is all but on top of us. And Brian and I, we get dropped off to hop the jetties because it's getting noticeably rougher, much further off the beach. And, Jeremiah, Will, you were in the boat with him. You guys had to make that run out around the jetties and come back around. And we had kind of game planned, and we said, there's no way that these kayaks are going to be able to make that run because it's going to get really rough in a hurry. So thank goodness the tide was in our favor. And Brian and I were able to literally like cruise up on the jetties. There was just, I don't know, less than a foot, 6 or 8 inches of the top of the and yeah, you guys can see the aftermath here. It was physically, like, getting over the jetty was the easiest part. And this cell here that you guys are seeing, this is what hit us the moment we cleared that jetty, to the point to where the guys in the boat are buzzing back through and almost totally missed us because it is, you've got maybe 10 yards of visibility because it is dumping. The wind is ripping. The water's up super high, super fast. And because of the current, it was all we could do to actually get the kayaks to the boat and physically get in the boat to get the out of Dodge.
Yep.
It was, like I said, I know, Will, you've spent a lot of time down there on that kind of water, and you've seen a lot of things weather-wise.
I mean, I'm also used to running it. I'm used to running it. I mean, I'm sure that's the exact same thing as him. Like those storms, like granted, that was just a different, like every other day, every storm we were in a big boat, you can just outrun them. Like in Tampa, we'll cover 30 miles in a day or actually more than that, we'll probably cover 100 miles in a day, but 30 miles in one direction and 30 miles back. Because when a cell is building, running radar, you see where it is and you're like, all right, I'm going to run 30 miles south. I mean, a kayak, you got to plan that a little better to where you can't just, like you're not going to want to hit that to push it like we pushed it just because we knew we needed the content. We wanted to make the trip a success. Having a whole day idle isn't really an option with what we were doing. So yeah, like, I'm sure Jeremiah is used to, if he's on his boat, oh, look, storms are building on the east side of the island. Let's run to the west side. So,
and I think it was different because we were hooked up. And I think that really messed up the timeline is because like we weren't running because we were hooked up. So that kind of brought our timeline out. And honestly, I think the safest thing, and we had the boat, so we were able to kind of get around that situation. But normally, if I was just running kayaks, like I would just pull into the shore, right, and wait it out. Like that would be the safe choice there. Yeah. We didn't really have that option necessarily because we had the big boat and we knew we could get through it. But like Stuart was saying, like it was a little hairy, like getting over there, like getting them to see us. And I don't remember why. It was like I was hooked up to the boat, and like I couldn't see the boat very well because the rain was coming in such sheets, and I was trying to like pull into it because I was being roped in, and I remember being like, this is getting up there. Like this is a lot. Like we got some bigger rollers going, sheets coming down. And those videos that you saw, like that was from when we actually already got onto the boat. We're going back. I was trying to film because like I was kind of being like lifted on each roller like that. Like I was like getting a little airborne, like come back down, but I was like, I need to get some film. So I'm like digging in the bag, trying not to fall over, getting the film. When the water was hitting my phone with such consistency that I couldn't film. Like I would start it and it would be like video over, like a half second later. So the little snippets I got, I was able to like avoid the sheets of rain and like waves coming over and like all that stuff to get the video. But those kayaks, like they took a little bit of a thrashing and like they held up well, like getting back. And like we were able to use them getting to the boat, which was pretty impressive. Through all that, they stayed upright. We had the stability. We got the ropes, got them tied off. But it was a run. Like it was like definitely an experience. Yeah, like it was.
If I bought a NuCanoe, I would never pull it like that. But a NuCanoe bow handle will handle being pulled in easily 4 to 6 foot swells doing 20 miles an hour.
Yeah, we actually clocked it at like 19.3 at one point because we had to get up. It was so sketch. We had to get up on top of the waves and try to stay up on top. And it was like kayaks be damned at this point, guys. It's a safety thing. Like,
well, Jeremiah said he's like, if one of those breaks off, it's gone.
Yeah.
We're not going.
And I felt that. I was like, everyone on board, like we were all like, yeah.
We were to the point where we were like sacrificing the kayaks. I mean, that's not. I know we can show this video. We can all dramatize it, to some degree, of course, and talk about how crazy it was. We've all been on the water the better part of our lives. I mean, this is not like a new endeavor for us. And we've all been in crappy storms and rough weather and all that. But this was, when you throw in the dynamic of worrying about the kayaks, worrying about the weather, trying to get the content, all of those things, it was nothing that I would ever recommend anyone try to take on. I mean, it was to that point for sure.
Yeah. And then I think you're right with it. There's so many dynamics. Like that's like, people don't see like all the things going on. Like there's so many pieces moving when we're on these content trips, like it is fun and we do get to do cool stuff, but it's like a lot of experience goes into everything we're doing. A lot of like hard work, prep time, getting content, angles, move like this, cast like this, you're hooked up. How do we run everything? Like having game plans and then also keeping it safe. Right. And that was one of these experiences, like started to push those safety boundaries for sure. Like, because we had already bogged down, we had to tow them back in and we had everything set up a certain way. They start drawing lines in the sand and be like, if one of those snaps, like we're not going to be able to get back to it. But all that to be said, like if you are worried about the bow handle on unlimited, don't be. Like it'll take whatever you're gonna throw at it. Like we definitely went for a stress test beyond the recommended limit. It was, and it held up.
Someone ever says their kayak's like 300 pounds, which I hear people all the time say, like, can you lift a fully loaded NuCanoe? Like, I know there's a lot of aftermarket stuff, but I would be entirely confident as much as a human could physically lift on that bow handle will hold.
It was cool. But so going forward a little bit, that's where we got that really cool interview from Stuart. The audio is trash, but the aftermath of the boat and then like his reaction is just gold. So if you haven't seen that yet, go on Instagram, go on Facebook, check that out. We have some cool snippets of the storm and hooking up on that tarpon, and you can check all that out.
To put the period right on this whole wild. Kids, keep in mind all this happened in half a day.
Yeah,
like it was wild and crazy by the minute, seat of your pants, just going to send it, right? So to put a little bit of perspective on this, I spoke to Jeremiah after the trip. And we had seen like flashlights on the beach while we were running in. We had seen a couple of FWC officers and some like sheriffs, local sheriff and stuff, actually pull into the boat ramp right as we got there. And we were like, oh, man, it must be a crazy day or whatever. There were multiple people that had called those agencies to assist us because they were like, there is no way those guys are getting back in. We did confirm that. It was speculation at the time. After the fact, though, it was absolutely confirmed that it was It was.
I mean, they also thought that we were on a boat and y'all were out there in kayaks. They didn't think that we were doing like a marketing trip. Like
True.
that would have been
Like bringing those
absolutely-
together.
That would have been you. I don't think you would have had to have beached it. You could not. Y'all would not have, if y'all did not have a boat on that day, y'all would not have made it back through the submarine channel.
There's no way. We could barely get to the boat with the EPS on. I mean, full tilt. We were making no headway. That's how intense it was. Yeah.
I don't think any kayak. There's no kayak that I can think of that would be like that would have been a safe endeavor at that point. Honestly,
no, and that's not a slight on any other kayak out there.
No.
But it was just to that point to where you can only get but so much out of, whether it's, any kind of propulsion on a kayak at that point. Paddling, forget it. You are now at the mercy of the water.
Yeah.
Pray and hang on.
Well, paddling, you're not even going to fight a normal tide.
True.
It was cool because we were able to take the unlimited to that stress point where normally I would never plan anything, organize anything to try to get it to that point. But to be able to get to that point and still be like, I didn't feel like I was going to go in the drink getting to the boat. I was like, I should probably maneuver myself to the shore if I don't have a boat here. But I got it to the boat. So I was able to have the stability, have the comfortability to do that. And I think that speaks volumes for the unlimited. But again, don't ever purposely put yourself in that situation. The right thing is to do is get to the shore. We had the boat, so we were getting to that point. It was nuts.
Yep. It was crazy. It was absolutely
crazy. It was crazy. So
as cool as it looks on the videos and everything, I hope I never do that again.
Yeah, I was like, I'm good. Like that's like a one and done there. So that kind of wraps up day one. Day one's definitely like a bigger focus. We got the tarpon, we got the tarpons, and then we were able to get in, go through the storms. That brings us to day two. We were still on Amelia Island, still on the East Coast, but we're fishing a little bit different situation. And we met up with Wesley. Did Wesley make it in the back end? Do we have Wesley with us?
Negative.
Okay. But so this day, in my mind, is kind of split into two pieces. We went out early and we had some technical difficulties. We got everything kind of rearranged. I was super discombobulated after the first day. There was a lot going on. But again, Stuart's mom, we were able to get some good food, hang out, recharge. But brought up day two, and we were out more inshore and fishing along this bridge for looking again for tarpon or whatever came. But we mostly went inshore. We ended up in situations like this, kind of some backwater, and we were able to get some really cool shots and also catch some cool fish.
I do a lot of redfish, tailing redfish, flats. So I'll talk about that a little bit. I've run, even as a guide, I've run the inshore lifestyle where you're running pole and skiff, small water. One of my best friends lives in Charleston where we're fishing the flood tides where you're going after tailing reds in 4 to 6 inches of water, where half an inch of water actually matters. This is actually the second time in my life that I've run a kayak in the inshore, on the grass flats. And where the flounder are, that photo right there, that's almost about a foot of water, real shallow water, where we were actually having to pick up our the EPS and the XI3 to get through certain areas. A kayak in that, if I lived anywhere in North Carolina, other than the Outer Banks, if I was in the southern part of North Carolina, all the way through South Carolina, and then Mosquito Lagoon in Florida, anywhere like that, a kayak, especially the unlimited with a motor where you can hit, you can actually cover some distance with an electric motor, but then switch over to just hit, 4 inch, 6 inch. So the best time for me to always fish for the redfish, flounder, trout is as that tide's coming up and that water's pushing in, those fish are getting up on those oyster beds, or those fish are getting up on top of those grass flats. They're searching for their prey. Redfish love crabs. So they're getting in up on that, and a NuCanoe drafts nothing. So those guys, you can see the guys in the drift boats, in the poling skiffs waiting, and we're just right up on there. Brian's literally sitting in the grass, casting into this tiny little channel as the tide's coming up. That's
and
that
you
photo
talk about
right there sums it up.
the creeks and stuff that we're able to get into, these little cuts, and you're talking 4 to 6 inches of water, and we're talking about these little cuts that meander up through the grass is literally, I mean, in some cases it's not as wide as the boat.
Yeah,
No,
like you're like barely getting through them. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Not to
somebody
mention-
somebody just asked real quick, is this still up near Jacksonville? And actually, yeah. So this is still in the Amelia Island area, just to clarify that.
Yeah, so like going up through there, like also with the tide, like a kayak is so light. Like something I noticed, you shut off the motor, and like for tailing redfish, like I mean, you drop a lure on the boat, you drop your sunglasses, and every fish within 200 yards is gone.
Yep.
So like a NuCanoe, like the unlimited, especially, literally shut the motors off, pick them up in the tide. Like you can see Stuart right there in that photo, just standing there in the current pushing through those little like natural channels that go up on the grass. It literally would just carry you in there to the fish. I mean, it's like an absolute stealth, silent approach. Like, I mean, how many fish did we see swirling right past us, like right around the bend, and we're floating up on that bend and then make the perfect cast right in there to them.
Yeah,
So.
no, it was great. And then it's like we had that skinny water, we're fishing in there, and then lo and behold, another storm starts to roll in.
Why not?
And like Will and I are back there, and we're like getting more content. Yeah,
Yeah, rain gear.
I'm glad I'm wearing this hat right now.
Rain gear to the test.
I'm gonna give a
We
shout
had
out
that
to Gil. That
conversation.
was the hardest rain I've ever been in on a kayak. Like I could not see 50 feet in front of me. I think there's a video of it or a photo of it or something.
We got both.
When the rain was coming down, like, God, the rain this trip was just brutal.
It was. Yeah.
We were shooting, and we're like, specifically the rain started, and we're like, dude, let's shoot some stuff. Like we got all the gill bags. Like we're gonna get some good content, and then we're gonna get stuck. Like, and Stuart's already over there. He's like, come on,
Stuart's
guys.
like, I'm out. Sorry, guys.
What's really funny is you talk about all the cool aspects of the trip. We didn't realize when we embarked on this whole endeavor that it was going to be more or less foul weather content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we spent the better part of almost every day getting destroyed by these rainstorms.
Yeah.
I mean, at least for once, it wasn't like lightning and thunder and all that. It was just like those weird pop up, like real heavy, like usually like Florida is known for those afternoon, like, I mean, it's the lightning capital of the world. Those like big lightning storms where you're just like, man, I gotta get out of here. Like, I mean, what in Florida, more people die on golf courses from lightning than like the entire rest of the world combined. I think I read that stat one time. At least ours was just like really heavy rainstorms without the lightning and the thunder.
Yeah. I feel like most of our stuff was a lot of rain, right?
Yep.
Like there'd be like
but this photo is perfect. It literally encapsulates the majority of the trip.
Yeah. Well, and like this is Stuart and I up under the bridge. Like we made it under the bridge. Will was like, hold up, let me anchor my XI3. We're gonna spot lock this, and I'm gonna make some casts. Like I think there's a good spot. And he's just like sitting there, it's dumping water, and he's just rolling casts. Like, he's like, but it's holding, right? Like the XI3 did you well, dude. The XI3 unlimited combo, like stability, you got spot lock, like you're styling.
Somebody, not to cut you off, Brian. Somebody asked a minute ago, and I meant to bring up I saw the question pop up. And Will, you could probably answer this because I know you have the most experience out of us with it. Somebody asked if the XI3, if they felt like it would hold when you're fighting a tarpon.
No.
Yeah, there we go. There it is. No. What are your thoughts on that, just real quick, since we're on that topic?
I mean, I own a 21-foot Tidewater with a 100. It's a 36-volt trolling motor with spot lock, all of that on it. I mean, could you stop the boat? Yes, you can stop the boat, but there's a reason that like pier fishermen that hook up with tarpon never land them. Tarpon are known for making 200 to 500 yard runs, blazing fast. I mean, it's a 200-pound fish that's pure muscle that can jump. I mean, there's videos right now. If you Google tarpon jump over boat, and I've never seen one jump over a boat, but I also watched a guy get knocked out where a tarpon jumped and landed in the boat with a guy and started flapping around and knocked him out. So, I mean, a tarpon that can jump 10 feet in the air and make a 500-yard run, yeah, I bet you an XI3 would hold the boat from moving probably. But, I mean, So if you're fighting a tarpon for an hour and you have 30-pound drag holding that rod and it's pulling drag off like crazy, you're essentially holding a 30-pound dumbbell in your arm. So, and tarpon are smart enough where you can't grab like a tuna rod with 200-pound, hollow core braid and just fight it. Because one, you're going to pull the hook out, you're going to pull their mouth out. You got to fight with semi-light tackle. I mean, 40 pounds isn't light for most, but in the sport fishing world, like marlin guys are using 130-pound. You can't use 130-pound for tarpon because they're not going to eat it. So could the spot lock hold? Yes. But at the end of the day, the tarpon's going to go where the tarpon wants to go. The kayak could stay still, but you still got to follow it. I mean, that's why I said I've been pulled 7 miles in a 21-foot tidewater with a 36-volt trolling motor. When we hook up on a tarpon, me and my buddy that fished, Steven, me and him have landed. I actually broke between us, we're over 100 tarpon easily. And literally the second one of us hooks up, whoever's not on the rod, the first thing we do is pull the trolling motor out of the water, because if the tarpon gets up under the boat, the last thing you want is that tarpon to wrap your trolling motor. So I clear everything out of the water and just let him go where he wants to go. He just pulls the boat, pulls the kayak, pulls whatever. That's the way tarpon fishing. That's that in a nutshell, essentially.
Cool. I just wanted to make sure we get that question answered since I saw it pop up. So
yeah,
that's it. It's a good throwback. So that kind of like segments us into the second half here. So we end up over at these docks on the other side of the bridges here, and that's when Wesley meets up with us, and then we go for flounder. Right, we're soaking wet, and we like roll up like all haggardy, and Wesley's just like getting his unlimited out. He's like, "What's up, guys?" And we're like, it was rough. Like we needed a moment. At least I did. Like I was sitting there and I was like, I need to like compose myself and like see if I can dry out a little bit.
And fishing those pilings and like coastal currents, he was using the pivot drive. That pivot drive, like a lot of people nowadays are switching to all electric. Him having that like instant anti-reverse, being able to hold, I mean, literally he would pull up and be like completely perpendicular to a dock and then just use the pivot drive to go forward or backwards and hold himself. And I mean, he was waxing. I mean, granted, he fishes there and he knows the waters.
Yeah, he pretty much showed us how it was done with the pivot drive. I'm not gonna lie.
He didn't really say much as we're rolling up, and then he was just hooked up. Like it was like he rolled up
like first cast right out of the gate. Just what are you guys doing? Because I'm over here.
And then like I look back and he's just like bent up. He didn't even like say that much. He's just bent up on this flounder, and I was like, "Whoa, Will! Like go shoot him! Like let's try to get some video and stuff like that."
It was fast enough where I'm like, I'm glad I have a 200 millimeter lens right now, because I was shooting from a long ways away.
And that was pretty much the whole afternoon went. I mean, I feel like he stayed hooked up the whole afternoon with the maneuverability of the pivot drive to be able to kind of weave, in and out of those pilings and stuff. I feel like he basically stayed hooked up the whole time we were there.
Yeah, like every time I looked over, he was like bent up. And
I don't have a lot of time on the pivot, so I can't comment. I wish he was here for that, but watching him do that, like if I was out there in another kayak, like especially just like a wreck boat going in, and I saw him sitting there like pushing around. I mean, he was in shallower than all of us because I mean I was using the camera, throwing the cast net, so like I had my motor down. I couldn't get up there where he was. Like I mean, he was letting that pivot kick up. He was pushing himself over the sand without having to get his paddle out. He was going underneath the docks, in and around them, holding in the current. I mean, that thing right there. Like, obviously, we're doing a NuCanoe podcast. We're talking all NuCanoe, like talking it up. That was like it's very rarely in the kayak industry that you'll hear me say like I'm actually impressed. Like I was impressed.
It was cool to watch. Like I love the pivot drive. I put a lot of hours on it. He's a master. Like he knew. He was like, this is how I back up off of this, keep it here, like put it right there. And I'm like just going back and forth. Like motor, you get like a lot of like you're a fast response. Like you're like, I'm backing up or I'm going forward. He was just like holding like really well and able to like make those micro adjustments and just slaying those flounder. So that was really cool. That's kind of how the rest of the day went there. And then we came in, got dried off, got turned around that night. We had a lot of gear to kind of turn around. And then we went Central Florida on our way to the West Coast. We stopped in Gainesville. And that's when we met up with Buzz. We do have, right? Buzz.
Hey, there he is.
Hey, nice to see you, man. Yeah. So tell us about like your home waters, dude, and like being able to go fish.
Yeah. So thanks for having me on again. And I want to say, North Central Florida, you guys really just had all extremes. And even on our trip, we had an extreme, but you finally dried out, but then we turned on the heat and had no wind. It was just a perfect, perfect non-storm in our case. But we, we get here in Gainesville area regular. I just looked at the last 20 years, like 12 of the last 20 years, we had over 100 days of 90 degrees or more. And it seems like they're all in that same, like you could go 3 months of 90 degrees or more. And we had a few clouds, but I asked Brian when you guys were coming through, I knew you were going to be limited in time, and we have so many really good places to fish. So I was really trying to figure out what the priority was. And content was a priority, getting good pictures, and I wanted to not. You can see in those backgrounds, we got all the Spanish moss and we got the live oaks and that sort of thing. Wanted to give Will opportunity to take good photos and drone and that sort. So we went to a smaller lake where it's a little more quiet. We kind of had the lake to ourselves. It's called Lake Wahlberg, and it's near a wildlife area. So we had opportunity to see a few gators in there too. And we got a little bit of late start. You guys were running a little bit late, and I don't blame you for all the hard work you put in the last 2 days getting whipped. I mean, just whipped. And in the bite at this time of year is really tough during the hot part of the day. It's really, you can get a lot of top water bite very early in the morning, but once you hit about 9 or 10 o'clock, it can really slow down quite a bit. But so I think we got some good shots. Will got some drone work, and I know Stuart is getting a little frustrated too. If you don't know Stuart, he's like the OG of the not just NuCanoe, but in the kayak bass world, and won a lot of money fishing for bass. So it was fun for me to always, I learned something from people of all ages. That's not putting the age on you, buddy. I don't think I'm older than you, but I'm just saying that you can learn a lot.
I'm still young in bass years.
Yeah, yes, you sure are. But we got a lot of bites, but we just didn't really catch much, mostly during the day. But the big fish don't really care when they bite. They'll bite in the middle of the day, and I was fortunate to catch a nice. We didn't put it on the scale because we wanted to, the water was over 90 degrees, but I know it was 23 and a half inches, and it would have been my biggest of the year. But in Orange Lake, just a couple months prior to, I caught a 26-inch fish, a 13-pound fish. But this was still a good 6.5, and he smoked a speed worm on a little brush pile that I knew about there.
Man, I'll give you props to not to interrupt you, and I'm sorry for knowing your home waters. Like, none of us were running electronics. Everyone was pounding the bank the whole day, and then you're like, hey, like 12 feet deep over in this area, there's a brush pile somewhere around there. Like 4 casts later, you're fan casting out, and you're like, all right, the log is right there. I just hit it. I feel it. And then like 2 casts after that, you're fighting this fish. So I mean, that's like the definition of knowing your home waters, knowing how to fish your home waters. Like, I'll give you credit on that. Like, that was like, you made the day, you made the content, you successfully pulled that off, knowing the water. Like, a lot of people are like, all the time, I have friends, and I know everyone in this group right here has that same thing. Like, hey man, I have this spot right here. This is like an epic spot, and we need to go fish it. And you show up, and then you like hit it hard all day long, and then you leave, and you're like, dude, I think I know more about that water than that guy does. I mean,
Big Bass Buzz definitely got the job done that day, no doubt, for sure.
Yeah, and then it was work. I mean, it really was work. I was getting a little frustrated because even though I know the focus was to get good pictures, and I can't wait to see some of those drone shots. And Will, I still need to get one of those ones where I actually held the fish up. So at some point,
didn't I send you those?
You sent me some, but I never got one of me actually, the grip and grin sort of one. That's just for my own use. But
Okay.
the pictures were so great. The ones you sent, and Will takes some awesome shots, and I think we just had a good time until like 30 minutes. I don't know. It seemed like 10 minutes, but before we left, I had my first migraine from the heat. I don't think I drank enough water. My first migraine in a long time, in a couple of years. But you guys were so great, graceful, and I think I got you to a good barbecue place on the way out of town. But we had a good time. I can talk all day about fishing for bass in North Central Florida. I know we've talked a lot. And I want to respect everybody's time. So don't feel free to cut me off anytime you want, Brian. Yeah, it's go ahead.
I was like, you're totally fine, man. I was gonna say you basically nailed it with like getting that brush pile and being able to like pull out that big bass at the end of the day. We were fishing hard, especially you and Stu. But at the end, we wanted to go tandem, and that's where those photos came from, with tandem. And it's just been a long day. Like, we've been on the water a lot. It's like day 3, right? And we got Stuart and Will going out there, and they're coming in, and I'm like, I'm gonna play photographer, which is never really the best idea. Like,
that's not a good thing. If you get to that point in the day, it's
like I'm there, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna play photographer. This is a workout. And then Will is like, do you think I can sink it? And I was like, shoot. I'm like, what was that? And he's like, no, like you think I could, if I really jump down on it? And I was like, no. And he's like, challenge accepted. So he just starts, like, he stands up, Stewart's in the back, like white knuckling, right? And Will's just like all his force trying to bring the nose under the water. And he kind of almost gets it. Like, he gets it. A bunch of water comes out, but then Limited just drains it all right back out again. And he's just kind of frustrated. So he jumps harder, right?
I think there's a video of it, isn't there?
Yeah, we got a video. We'll post it up. But like, the nose is just dipping just under the water. And it pops back up each time, and we got the tandem photos we needed, and no one went in the drink. So it was a good success all the way around.
Yeah, Stu didn't like it when I was like, I'm fully prepared to get soaked.
You were. I was the one prepared to get soaked because I figured he's going to be jumping around, but I'm going to somehow be the one that goes in.
Oh yeah, that would be par for the course for sure. Stuart gets kicked out the back somehow.
If I can take just a couple of quick seconds while you're on here, Buzz. I've been very fortunate, very blessed to be able to bass fish literally all over the country. You've got some killer water, man. That was beautiful. Regardless of the fact that we got that one really, really good one, whether these guys know it or not, I know it lives there. I know I saw the right things. And I had some missed opportunities, had some really good fish, which is on me, not on you. You did your job great. But, it's a tough prospect to try to hunt down fish in, literally 90-degree water in the summer. That is brutal. And, man, like, regardless of how many fish we put in the boat, the place showed out. It was very cool. And dude, you have the knowledge you have is awesome. Like, second to none for sure. So if anybody's bored, or if they're just really looking to learn a body of water, I would absolutely say give Buzz a shout. He knows what he's doing. I would have been pretty much lost because I was running off of my general knowledge of Florida fishing. And yes, it's still Central Florida, but it's not the same kind of stuff that I was used to fishing. And dude, you called pretty much every shot in the entire lake, not just yours. We went down that one bank and you were like, we need to fish from here to here. This is our, high percentage stuff.
Right.
And dude, every bite that I got that I subsequently sucked at landing, you called every one of them. So dude, thank you. You're the guru as far as I'm concerned in that neck of the woods.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it, guys. I definitely try to put as much time in as I can. I couldn't do it without NuCanoe. Honestly, it's the most stable boat around for my customers. You guys are experienced. It was really nice. I got to fish. Most of the times I don't. When I'm taking somebody around, I try to help people out, and maybe I'll throw a line in to see what's biting to try to help them. But at the end of the day, we got to keep people safe and stable, and the NuCanoe kayak does that. And this has been a great platform for the podcast, and Brian Schiller's Paddle and Fin, sorry, has got me a few customers down here. Actually, I had a person call today who said I specifically saw it on the NuCanoe podcast when I've talked, when you guys have had me on before, and it's been great. So if somebody's out there thinking about trying to do kayaking guide trips and that sort of thing, there's plenty of NuCanoe guys that are doing it. Especially on the East Coast. So I'm happy to help out in any way, whether you want to go on a trip or whether you just want to learn the pros and cons of doing this as a little side hustle.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Buzz. Again, it was so awesome to fish with you. And
I just wanted to add, we mailed the invoice for the marketing for you to get those guided trips.
Yeah,
you should see that.
Okay, great. I look forward to that.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's lost in the mail, I think.
Nah, it'll get there.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys. I appreciate it for coming down. I'm glad we got to get on the water for a little while, and hopefully we'll have you down here we'll take you to Orange or Robin. We can really get into the double digits, hopefully at that point.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure.
Thank you so much, Buzz.
First trip of many.
Hey, Buzz,
Thanks,
hear
Buzz.
me out real quick, real fast. I know I'm interrupting, but Buzz, hear me out here. Buzz's Big Bass and Barbecue.
Okay.
Yeah, you got all the tools for
over,
it.
think about it.
Okay.
You might have something there. I'm just saying.
I had to bring a grill on the kayak. Now that will be the next marketing tool for an accessory, a grill for the kayak.
There you go.
All right, guys.
Buddy. We had a blast, dude.
Good.
Yeah, great.
Thanks so much.
Dope. Okay, so that brings us to the final 2 days. So West Coast, Tampa. Will, this is your spot, man. This is we had a lot of things kind of running. Let's hit the highlights, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's gonna be able to talk a lot about this. It was a blast fishing in the Tampa, St. Pete area. So, I mean, my dad lives there. I fished there, my best friend that I fish with all the time, Steven, me and him have gone now for pretty much a decade every year, where some years we've gone for an entire month. I have a lot of friends that are guides, worked down there, done everything in that area. And this was the first time I've ever fished it from a kayak. So, I mean, I know the waterway. I mean, anyone that lives in the Tampa, St. Pete area, boating and waterways, I mean, pretty much everything is an island, and most of them are man-made little islands where there's water everywhere. You drive from one island, jump across another island, jump across another island. I've never fished it from a kayak, and some of the no motor zones, being able to pull through and hit a lot of those, especially in the Fort DeSoto area and all of that. A kayak in that area is awesome. Not to mention just Tampa in general. I mean, that's pretty much you can go a little bit farther north and still get some of the big species, but Tampa is the first spot that from a kayak, especially in the shallow waters, that you can almost get the slam. You're not going to get a bonefish in Tampa. You got to go south for that. But I've caught permit in Tampa. I've caught grouper. Well, Stuart got a grouper on the trip. You can get you can actually in Tampa Bay from a kayak get a legal size Goliath or gag or red grouper. Then you can get redfish, snook, trout, and then Tampa. Other than Boca Grande, Tampa is probably the most well-known tarpon spot in the United States. I mean, of course, you have the resident fish down in the Keys and stuff where you have the year-round. But for the migration of the big pods of tarpon, Boca Grande and Tampa Bay are the two. That's the holy grail of fishing. I mean, there are guides down there that literally only guide 3 months a year, and then they're done for the rest of the year. So,
yeah, honestly, it was great. I had not experienced that fishing before, and I would never fish in Florida before that. So it was awesome, man. Like you said, we had to pull through a lot of those grass flats, and then we just hammered some speckled trout. It was fun, man. And then the manatees. I had never seen a manatee before. That was nuts, dude.
I actually saw
stand-
someone just posted that. Not to interrupt, someone just made that comment a second ago about a manatee.
I was like, I don't know if this is just my West Coast self talking here, but like my first instinct was like, dude, that's a living potato. Like that thing just sits in the water and like has like a snout, like, and it just does its
Brian,
thing.
do we have any of that video that I sent you?
Oh yeah, we got one of the videos you pull up, but
Okay,
it's
yeah,
like
that was.
when it's like up to yours, dude.
Yeah.
They were okay. Can anyone answer this for us? They were sniffing, especially the NK 180. As soon as it like we'd motor up stop right because it was manatees, and they would just hover right behind it and just sniff the prop. Like they really enjoyed it.
So Stuart was making fun of me because me and Stuart fished. This was probably what 2018, 2019, Stuart, when we fished Mosquito Lagoon.
A while ago, for sure.
It was a long time ago. I was in an F12. So the comment Brian made, Brian, I'm not going to try to pronounce your last name. He's like, the craziest thing was when he went over a manatee with the pivot drive and then the water exploded under him. So Brian and Stuart here were totally okay with this manatee being under him. Meanwhile, I was freaking out because in Mosquito Lagoon in like 2018, I hit a manatee with a paddle because Mosquito Lagoon is like murky water. You can't see anything. Tampa Bay, like, I mean, the water is crystal clear. You can see 10 feet deep, see everything. But Mosquito Lagoon, I hit a manatee with my paddle, and the next thing I know, Stuart and all them are dying laughing. I was like 10 feet in the air. The manatee took off, and the kayak didn't flip. But when I landed, I came out of my seat, and my head hit like there was no gear pod on the F12. My head hit like the front of the NuCanoe, and I landed literally. I did almost a 360 and landed face first in a kayak from a manatee. So like, I am not a fan. Like I was freaking out when that thing was under me. I was like, nope, not happening.
And we were happy to remind, or I was happy to remind you and relive that with you throughout the entire process. Because it was pretty funny. Yeah, it's such a cool. It's a totally different environment. If you've never been there, you look at what we were doing. Beach fishing off of a beach in Amelia versus fishing the Tampa Bay area, obviously St. Pete. It's 180 degrees different, but the really cool part is where we were fishing a fair amount of the time was we got to fish 3 or 4 different ways within 2 miles of one another, or of each one. And that might be one of the coolest places I've ever fished in Florida. And, I've fished, Will, you fished Florida more than me, but I've probably fished more different areas over the years, just from being in, the kayak thing a long time. But having fished so many different places in the state of Florida, I'll go out on a limb and say that, that Tampa area may have the best diversity, not only of fish, but habitat, where you can chase some, dirt, shallow and clear water, which is incredible. It's super cool. The only other place I've been able to do that is the Keys. And to be frank, the Keys did not really, to me, have the diversity that Tampa had of big fish. The Keys is full of, it's like a nursery, tons of little fish. But what Tampa has to offer is, I'd be hard pressed to find anything cooler in Florida or, realistically, anywhere, in the States.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool.
I mean, we launched from a launch that we weren't thinking about, and then the tide dropped, and then we had to lift kayaks like up a 7-foot seawall. But other than the kayak
launch, on my trade plug, Brian.
Other than the kayak launch,
I'm just saying, I'm taking orders. If anyone drops a drain plug in the water, I'll find it. Like, you just give me like 30 seconds. I'll walk out there. I'll pick up your drain plug. No questions asked.
No, we launched. So we fished the channel going out, which is like a government dredge channel, which every intercoastal waterway in the United States has dredge channels that usually hold like bigger fish. So we fished that. Then we went out, hit the big sand flats. Tampa Bay out there in front of some of the islands have, 10 mile by 4 mile sand flats that are between 1 to 4 foot deep. then went into the inside of the islands and hit, the protected area, like the fort area, which is the National Wildlife Refuge, which you can fish, but it's a no motor zone. So like we picked the motors up, we pulled through it, and it's all grass fishery. I mean, that's less than a mile from the big sand flats. And then a mile from there, we went and fished, the commercialized area where you have the huge marinas, the monster boats running all over the place, the big bridges. So, I mean, we were literally able to just bounce one to the next, to the next, to the next. And that right there, we did not have a chase boat or anything. Like that is what any wreck paddler, like you couldn't do it without a motor or a pedal system. Like just going out there with a paddle, it would have been hard to do what we do just because of the tides. Like if you were to time it right, where you rode out on a tide and came in on a tide, you could do it. But we just did it whatever we wanted to because we had motors. But everything we did there, a kayak is like every water we went to is fully accessible by someone that went and purchased a NuCanoe tomorrow and went out there and do it. Like, of course, check your weather first. Make sure you got a charged battery. I would definitely put some safeties on there for you. But I mean, the NuCanoes handled it perfectly.
Yeah, and this kind of shows like we were out there, and we'll have a video coming out later. We had some tie line anchors with us, and we were able to do kind of some drop ball systems. We were chasing tarpon over there. Unfortunately, we didn't hook in any tarpon over on that side. We were able to spot some as they're coming through. But yeah, so this is kind of the same thing. We were running through some surf. We were able to go out in places, and again, all of it we didn't have the support vessel. We were just launching, bringing the NuCanoes out there, and it all felt super doable. Like we were able to kind of go where we wanted to go, get where we needed to get to, do the different systems, like rig up for drop balls, go into inshore, and kind of put it all together in a big day. Which brings us to like the last fishing spot, which was the bridge.
Well, wait, before that, talking about Tampa, and we should have taken a picture of it. You remember we went into that small cut, which everyone calls the Irma cut. It was this tiny little cut in Tampa, which if you're a captain that knows the waterway and you're there all the time, you can run right in it. But we went in there in our kayaks. We were fishing all over the place. A pontoon boat right behind us. A pontoon boat loaded down with like 10 people. Is like, I'm going to follow those guys in the kayaks in. So we made it in, no problem. The next thing you know, we're literally looking back and everyone, like all 10 people on that boat were out of the boat trying to push it back off of the sandbar. Yeah. And we didn't get a photo of that, but I mean, that just shows.
And also too, talking about that, Will, that exact moment, literally once those people were safe and we had obviously, made sure there wasn't going to be a serious issue there. We literally turned around and ran up behind that island there. And Brian, I know you saw this.
Yeah.
You got to experience snook in mass for the first time.
There was so many snook. Like I had never even seen a snook in person. Like again, West Coast up here on my island here. And I'm like, yeah, I've seen like photos of snook and all this stuff. And I like have imagined snook fishing and I was so pumped. There were so many snook. Like they just were running. Like it was like I don't know, just like pink salmon fishing. Right? It was like so many fish pushing into the byline like of the flats. And it was awesome because it was so like addictive of like being able to be on a NuCanoe, pull like we got through the really flat section, we got where no boats could get to, and that's where all the snook were. Like it was just an amazing experience.
High tide, they were pushed up in the mangroves. That's the
and there's no way you could have taken another boat there. We were running so shallow.
I mean, we had to pull the EPS
for
the whole thing. I mean, it was. I've seen plenty of snook over the years, but I mean the amount of snook in one. I mean, you're talking a couple acres, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would say thousands, but I would say no. Actually, I probably would, honestly.
Yeah, I was like, it was a lot of snook.
Yeah, the amount that we just saw under the kayak that you and I talked about, had to be in the thousands.
It's like to the point where you start to wonder, like the water level, like how much water is displaced because of all these snook. Like would it go down like an inch? Like there's so many snook in here.
When the conditions are right and the tide's moving, they just find those potholes and they just sit.
I wish I had videoed Brian's face, like his reaction, because like Will, you and I, we've seen snook before.
Oh yeah,
it's a thing. But Brian's reaction was almost like cartoonish. I mean,
Dude, I like everyone here, right? Like we're like as small kids, like we love fish. Like I to this day, if a fish jumps on a waterway, like I am zoned in. I have no idea what anyone walked in around me. I'm locked in. To see that many snook was like overload. I was just sitting there, like everything spinning and like not computing, and I'm like, rod, where's my rod? Like, how do I get into the water as soon as possible? And I think I was like halfway through discussing something about like getting content. I was like, we need to get this thing here set up this way, and then there's just fish everywhere. These awesome snook. So
I mean, that's kind of the good and bad of it. Like, it's a content trip. We were at the end of the trip where we were more worried about shooting the content to get the photos we needed for marketing versus like just fishing the waterway hardcore. Like the first couple days, you know, you're always like, all right, we got a couple of good photos. Let's fish, guys. The end of the trip, you're like, all right, if we have a second, we're gonna fish, but we gotta turn and burn. We gotta shoot this. We gotta shoot this. Like, make a whole shot list. Like, you know, me and Brian were up. I think, Stu, you were at that point. You're like, I'm going to bed, and me and Brian are sitting there at a coffee table or on the dining table, and he like has his computer up with a list of all of these shots that have to be compiled, and we're like, I think we can do this here. I think we can do this here. Let's try to get this done.
And, you know, that's the part a lot of people, you know, through no fault of their own, obviously, but they think that, oh, you guys just go fishing. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I will go so far as to say it's work. I mean, we're very blessed. Obviously, we love what we do, or we wouldn't be doing it. But, you know, people don't see that, especially saltwater. Like, saltwater is the absolute, like, litmus test of what you can put up with and what you can handle on a truncated timetable like what we had, right? Because every night you got to tear down all the boats, clean all the gear, set up everything, tear everything down, set it up for the next day, like do all that. And, you know, I think we did at one point, we were getting to bed between 11 and midnight and up at like 6 pretty much every day, right?
Yeah, like I feel that's like good night. Like that's
Pretty
like
standard.
we're nailing it. Yeah, if we're like in bed by midnight, like that's.
By the
that's
way, if you're hardcore about fishing, make sure you set your DoorDash or your Uber Eats ahead of time, because by the time you get off the water and you go through all your shots, no one delivers.
No one delivers. No one's even like open anymore.
Yeah.
No, so that was great. We did have the one last spot, which was the bridge, which for me, that was like kind of like a testing ground. Like that took a lot of like stuff. It took a lot of kayak fishing knowledge, in my opinion, to kind of like be around those areas and keep it safe. Also, you guys net crabs that are floating through the open water. That was weird. Like, Will hands me a net, and he's like, net the crabs. And I was like, I'm in open water. I'm like, what crabs? Like, there's not going to be crabs. And then these little crabs just come like floating on the top of the water, and everyone's out there just trying to net them. It's like Easter egg hunting.
Yep. It's crazy. A 200-pound fish is sitting there. You wonder how many of those crabs that tarpon has to eat per day. Yeah. I mean, there's thousands of crabs. Like the crab flush is, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, that's the first time I've ever fished for tarpon in July. Like, I definitely would recommend it in May or June, because you'll see those pods of, you know, sometimes, I mean, there's videos of planes flying over Boca Grande and Tampa where they'll be, I mean, literally looks like you can walk across the backs of them, like 2,000 tarpon. But they'll just stack up in those passes. And like, I will say, I've fished that bridge, and I'm not going to name it, but I've fished that bridge 100 times out of a boat, out of a kayak. That was challenging. I mean, we did it fine. Intense. That's a lot of current moving through there, but the crabs flushing through without like a drop ball anchor and a real heavy anchor, or an electronic system like what we were running, the XI3 and the EPS, or like if you had a Torqeedo. Like, I've seen kayaks in there before, not to mention you have hundreds of boats going through. I mean, how many boats did we see pass us? Like, I mean, per hour, probably 30 boats, 20 boats. Yeah, I mean, probably more than that.
More. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, that structure in there where they blew up the old bridge and holding it, that is just, I mean, you throw your thing down, you can catch a sheep's head, you can catch a grouper, you can catch a redfish, you can catch, I have a friend down there that lives there, and he's pulling 40-inch black drum off that bridge because he knows how to fish for them. Red grouper, tarpon, permit, literally anything on that one bridge in that one spot.
Yeah, again, it goes back to like the biodiversity and the biomass down there. It's insane, different level. But it was cool, like honestly, to be able to have some more of the chop, to be able to handle it, and the stability, and the ability to like go around. I was able to do my 360, mess with my gear, and kind of keep everything flowing. It was really cool. I will say it was the only time on the trip that I would truly say I was like shook by the wildlife, because like I don't fish with a lot of sharks, guys. Like I just don't. And there was a shark fin. And the thing must have been like 2.5, 3 feet wide and just tall. And I was like doing something, my foot was in the water, and I was talking to Will, and then this shark fin comes up, and I just stopped mid-sentence, and it was like 10 feet away. Like it was not far off at all. And I pulled my foot in, and I had to take a second. I was like, that was a big shark. Like
if I would have seen you doing that, I would have told you to immediately take your foot out of the water.
Yeah, lesson learned.
There's actually, I can't remember, it's Peacock or one of those. There's actually a brand new documentary that talks about the hammerheads versus the bull sharks. So for Tampa, or for tarpon fishing, like Boca Grande and Tampa, I think even someone commented in the chat about the hammerheads love eating the tarpon. When the tarpon migration comes through, I mean, I've seen 14-foot hammerheads swim under. I've seen, bull sharks just rip tarpon in half. So, I mean, where the big tarpon are, the big sharks are as well. I mean, they're definitely bigger than a kayak. Luckily, I think they like to taste the plastic.
Yeah. It was quite the experience there. But overall, like it was a long trip. So many people followed along. We were able to post up on the stories, make some reels. We still got content coming out. The content from this trip is going to be kind of spread out for a long time. And I kind of want to talk about like real quick, like these experiences and being able to do these content trips. We've been talking kind of internally about doing more of them and kind of expanding and doing different regions and kind of growing it as a thing. So if anyone has feedback about regions or what you didn't like about following along, that would be really welcome, honestly, as we're designing out these future ones. Because we've done trips in the past that we're talking about like the Keys and different photo shoots, but kind of in this vein, it was Georgia and now Florida, and we're kind of moving forward as we look at 2024 and even into 2025. So any feedback would be great as we kind of design that out and look at what's ahead for NuCanoe, because we got some really exciting stuff coming down the pipeline. So I'm excited to kind of put all that together, share that experience with everyone in the ecosystem. So, but this trip went well, guys. I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with you guys.
It was fun. Like, so working in the fire service, after you have a big fire, you always say you do like a hot wash, or like other people in other industries call it like a debrief. It was fun getting together, talk about this. I know like this will be posted up everywhere and everyone's going to there's actually been a lot of like talk and chat going on here once I figured out that I could have the chat up while I'm in this podcast. But I mean, no, I think it was a good trip. And I know like people following along, like I asked just the other day, like how much traction this was getting, and like 20,000 people, 30,000 people per video that's coming out of this trip. Like just being a part of it the whole time. I know I can speak for Stuart as well. Like it was a blast going down there, fishing all these different waters, like pushing a NuCanoe truly farther than what, I mean, 99% of people that buy a kayak aren't going to fish 12 hours a day for 7 days or 5 days straight across an entire state. But to just be able to show what a NuCanoe can do, I mean, we thrashed them, like absolutely pushed them to their limit. And if this podcast is ending, like I'll just say, like, the amazing dealers we have and the new colors coming out, which like me and Stuart are OG guys, where the Thunderstorm and the Nuclear, the Nuclear and the Hazard, like running it up there. When I got to drop it off at Rum, the NuCanoe dealer up there, 2 boats, he's like, y'all just got these kayaks a week ago? And we're like, yeah, we did. I mean, like the kayaks were still structurally perfectly fine, but there was rash top to bottom from dragging them over jetties, pushing them up against bridges. Like, I mean, it just shows the durability of a NuCanoe, where we put them to the test. Like, heavy current, letting the tide the current just push you up against, a barnacled, bridge piling, and just sitting there and fishing straight down. I mean, that's how you were able to get a grouper off of a kayak, is literally just pushed up against the piling, dragging them over the jetties. I mean, a kayak's meant to be used. So if anyone like ever wants to know like how much they can handle a lot.
I would conservatively say that what we put those kayaks through in literally just a week is every bit as much as what most kayak anglers will put them through in a year. And
Oh yeah.
I don't even feel boisterous or, outside of my comfort zone to say that. And I've been very fortunate, to your point, Will, talking about, just what these kayaks are capable of. I've been very, very lucky in that I've been in the kayak fishing world for well over a decade now. And to see what, not just NuCanoe, but what the kayaks of our era now are capable of, what we can do with them, it's truly incredible. The kind of water it opens up, the sport fishing opportunities it opens up. I mean, heck, even like crabbing and stuff that, Brian, you guys are doing up there. It's truly amazing to see what these kayaks can be put through that 10 years ago, those of us that were, fishing out of kayaks back then, which is OG, I guess, by today's standards. But to see the difference, like what you can really and truly do, the kind of water, the places, the amazing like aspects of the sport that are opened up to you and afforded to you, whether it's the kayak, whether it's the attached technology, be it like, EPS, pivot drive, motor guide, what good old fashioned paddle, whatever. It's really, really cool. I mean, I guess I'm spoiled in that I've been able to go so many places and do like legitimately like really, really just cool stuff from a kayak. But this trip kind of put a lot of that into perspective because, to your point, Will, you fished all over Florida, 21-foot center console, right?
Yeah.
Like you're used to it. Okay, it's Tarpon. Whatever. Caught 100 of them. I'm still not cool with that. But to experience the things that we have at our disposal and to be able to experience it with you guys and the other team members, Wesley and Buzz, and it's just freaking cool, man. Like what we can do from kayaks and the experiences that we get to have, the luxuries that we have that big boat guys and some other, fishermen don't get to have. I hope everybody can experience this, whether it's from a NuCanoe or from any kayak, because it's one of the most unique sports and experiences that you can possibly have in the realm of fishing, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's me and Brian. Brian, we just talked about this the other day. Like, people ask me all the time. They're like, all right, well, you fish NuCanoe, you live and breathe NuCanoe, you sell NuCanoe, you do all this. Why do you own a boat and stuff? Like, I'm a firm believer in you fish the waterway. You don't fish out of one thing. So like,
Sure.
if I'm running 50 miles in a day, like I have buddies that have 40-foot, with quad, 300s on the back of them, where we're running 100 miles offshore to go fish. Like, you fish the waterway, but like anyone that lived, especially in Florida, the areas that we fished, like where Buzz was, it's a trolling motor only. So if you launch a big John boat in there, it's loud, it's heavy. Throw a kayak, it's faster. Where we went in Tampa, you're really skinny, shallow water where you cannot physically get a boat in there. You run a boat. So if you have a waterway that's better in a boat, like run a boat. Like people all the time say, oh, you should buy a boat instead, or you should buy a kayak instead. It's like the areas that we fished were fishable and accessible because we were in a kayak. And
well, even the big bridges, Will.
Yeah.
I mean,
oh yeah. No, I mean, like we were able to drive over there and launch.
How many 40, 50-foot boats did we see? I mean, they're everywhere, right?
Yep.
Like you said with the Tarpon, you could walk across them literally. But it proves the point. If kayak fishing is your medium, right? If it's your vehicle to experience the outdoors, whether it's by choice or by, financial limitation, or whether it's, you live in an apartment and you're like, I need a kayak that I can drag in and out of my apartment. I'm a college kid. I'm a single parent, whatever that is.
Oh yeah.
All of those options are still open to you via kayak if you have the right tools for the job.
Yeah.
Yeah,
mean,
I
the
think
fact
that's a
that you
huge
can
thing.
launch and be on the water without and like cleaning down. Like the one thing down in saltwater, especially when I get done at the end of the night, 3 hours later, I'm washing the boat, washing everything, cleaning everything up. I mean, if you have a $2,000 kayak with a motor, 10 minutes later, you're washed and you're done for the day. Like if someone gets like, I lived in Florida down there and it's a Wednesday and I want to go fishing. Like I would go to work with the kayak in the back of my truck, get done with work, go fish for 3 hours. At the end of the night, like be like, all right, I'm going to let the rain wash this kayak off and I'll be good for tomorrow. Like, I mean, that's just.
Yeah. No, the throw and go ability and like all that kind of it's night and day. And I think that's a huge thing we're trying to showcase on these content trips. We're trying to get all the content, right? But we're also trying to bring people along for the journey to be like, look at these cool places that you can access because you're on a NuCanoe. You know, you got the skinny waters, the access points, as well as the bridge with the big boats, right? We're still running and gunning right there. Like we're right with them. We're anchoring up. Like we're gonna pull in some fish, you know?
How much respect did we get from the big boats at some of those bridges?
Oh, dude, I do it for the nod.
That's
I'm not gonna
too,
lie. Like I'm out there and they're like,
there were like
yeah.
40, 50-foot boats, and they were looking at us like, respect. I mean, it's doable, right? It's
When the one big boat pulls up to us. Sorry to interrupt you. The big boat pulled up and he's like, hey, have y'all got any? Like, where are you seeing them? What's going on? Like, he's not even looking at us.
How many boats did we have come to us looking for crabs?
Yeah. I mean, like we're like running on their anchor.
Boats, like, you guys just caught all the crabs in like 10 minutes. Like, it's so much easier from a kayak than it is from a big boat.
Because they're in one spot and we're just like bouncing all over the place, like pulling in all the
well,
crabs,
again, like to your point, Will, there's no one tool for the job. It's whatever tool is right, given the circumstances, whatever that looks like for you. And whether you're lucky enough to have a big boat sitting in the driveway, or you're a young kid trying to get into this sport, and you want to be a little bit maybe borderline crazy, like some of the stuff we did in those storms. Not that I'm recommending it. Not that I would, parents, if you're listening, no, I'm not saying your kid should go do that. But if you want something that's going to give you the most bang for your buck, and truly allow you and afford you the luxury of getting to some of these places, I truly, and this is someone who's owned big center consoles, and Will and I, we've talked about this for years. Having the financial luxury to be able to do that stuff, I still find myself going back and back and back and back to these kayaks because, I mean, whether it's bang for the buck, whether you simply cannot afford something more at the time, whether it's one of the tools in your belt, right?
Yep.
It's what these kayaks truly afford you to do, especially in a place like Florida, with the diversity of the habitat, the fisheries, all that. You're hard pressed to come up with a reason not to have one, at your disposal.
If I was going to buy two, I would buy a kayak first.
Yeah. Like, because I mean, there's so much overlap, and also like all the spots you can only get to with the kayak.
Yep. I mean, just shy of if someone was to ask me and be like, "Hey, look, I want to go catch a blue marlin," I'd be like, "Yeah, buddy, you probably aren't going to do that out of a kayak." I mean, if you go to Costa Rica, those guys are doing it, but not here in the States.
Sure.
Okay, guys, I feel like we should cap it there. I know we have so many more things we could talk about and so many stories from this that we weren't able to touch on. But everyone, just like as we look forward, there's gonna be like more of this content rolling out. We're gonna be seeing like the Why NuCanoe, which is a great platform, kind of an intro people to the brand and kind of see what we're all about. There's a digital version, which is in our emails on our website, and we post it up on these podcasts quite often. As well as you look forward to the next years, more content trips and seeing stuff like that. I saw some great suggestions in the comments. Keep those in. Email in any questions or comments you have about more stuff we could do and your insights for your local regions and stuff like that, guys. So it's been awesome. Thanks for following along with this journey, guys. And also thank you to Schiller for running this, Will and Stuart for putting up for all those late nights, early mornings, just grind fest like such. Like they were hard days and fun all wrapped up together.
Thank you to Buzz. Oh, I was saying thank you to Buzz and Wesley too, for sure.
Yeah, showing off your home waters, meeting up with us. It was a great time all around, guys.
Yep.
Let's do it again soon.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Awesome. Dude, guy, thank you so much. Schiller,